Clues and foreshadowing from episode 7, The Dragon and the Wolf. There were a lot of foreshadowing payoffs in this finale, for things that were set up not only in past episodes but also in this same episode as well. Starting with one of the first lines of dialogue when Bronn is talking to Jaime. This conversation is hilarious because the main topic is, as Bronn puts it,
men without cocks.
But closer to the end of the episode, we realize how much meaning this conversation had, when we get the payoff of Theon earning his victory in this fight because of that same reason. Then we had things like Jaime saying that Tyrion has always been a champion of the downtrodden. Jaime might not be cockless, but he is handless, which makes him downtrodden too. The end of the episode reflects this by showing us Jaime, a downtrodden, joining Tyrion, the champion of the downtrodden. What about Bronn, you may ask? Well, he did include himself in the downtrodden group as well.
I think we're about to be the downtrodden.
I think he'll follow Jaime closely behind. We also had a few strong themes that kept being repeated over and over before we got the payoff. One of them was family. Starting during that same conversation with Bronn, Jaime mentions family.
I spent my life around soldiers. What do you think they spend that gold on?
Family.
Also, the body part that they're talking about has a lot to do with family because, as Bronn states, you can't have a family without it.
Not without a cock, you don't.
You can't have babies without it, and babies is one of the other big themes in this episode, but we'll get to that later. There's a ton of small details that add to the family theme in this scene, and they all give a foreshadowing feel, some more obvious than others. First, we have the Hound walking up to the Mountain, his brother, basically telling him that he's not done with him yet. He's a bit vague in the way that he says this, but Rory McCann, the guy who plays the Hound, confirmed this in one of the behind-the-scenes videos. Obvious Clegane Bowl foreshadowing, but also family matters. Soon after that, we're reminded of family relations again, when Euron, who is Theon's uncle, tells him that he has his sister, with yet another portrayal of family matters by having Jaime defend Tyrion against Euron.
Perhaps you ought to sit down.
And even Cersei joins in as well.
Sit down or leave.
This family theme continues throughout the whole Tyrion and Cersei interaction, starting from when Tyrion volunteers to go talk to her because she is his sister, to the entire conversation that they have, where they talk about their father, their mother, and Tyrion also claims over and over that he loved Cersei's children. I added all of those together to number 7 because there were a lot of little things, and I think of it more as the overall theme between the two characters. But I would like to give this line from Tyrion its own number on the list because I find it to be the most important line of all.
I don't want to destroy our family, I never have.
I feel that when he said that, he was being honest, and not just trying to appeal to Cersei here. And I would say that we need to remember this about Tyrion, because he will probably be a big thing in his next moves. Our first payoff for family foreshadowing happens at the end of Tyrion and Cersei's scene, when we figure out that the whole point of Cersei letting Tyrion come talk to her was to reveal to him that she's pregnant. Now, after we heard Tyrion say that he never wanted to destroy his family, and say over and over again that he loved Cersei's children, Cersei has got him in a corner here, where he can't go back on his word. Whatever deal Tyrion made with Cersei, it must have had to do with him proving to her that he would put her children's safety first, which will more than likely increase that conflict of interest in Tyrion. I think the way that Tyrion looks at Dany's door when Jon is in there is a clue to what he discussed with Cersei. For those of us who thought Tyrion might have just been jealous at first, this has been debunked by the director. Now there's also clues to this baby potentially not being Jaime's after all, but Euron's. And I know I've denied the possibility of this in another video, but after hearing that Cersei has been having secret conversations with Euron behind Jaime's back, and the fact that Euron is still on her side after seeing this crazy impressive dragon lady, could be pointing to something other than a deal tying Euron to Cersei. It makes complete sense that Cersei would be mentioning Euron Greyjoy's idea of sailing to an island away from the dead, when she's talking about keeping her family safe.
Maybe Euron Greyjoy had the right idea. Get on a boat. Take those who matter.
You're pregnant.
But the writers could have been trying to add a hidden connection between the baby and Euron here, by having Cersei think of both of them at the same time. Then going back to the dragon pit, we also saw Euron talking about babies there in a way, when he told Tyrion that on the Iron Islands they would have killed him at birth for being a dwarf. And there's a ton of potential clues here. First of all, it's a reminder for Tyrion that Tywin allowed him to live. This is a huge deal in Tyrion's family. So again, family theme. Then it could also be foreshadowing that Cersei's baby is Euron's, because they've made that connection between Euron and babies again there. It could be foreshadowing that Cersei's baby will be a dwarf, like we've discussed before. But it could even be foreshadowing both things together, although it would make more sense for the baby to be Jaime's if it were a dwarf. But Cersei could have lied to Euron about it being his. Imagine if Euron were to reject Cersei's baby for being a dwarf. This would create quite the conflict between the two of them. But yes, we know that it would also make more sense for Cersei to either die giving birth or have a miscarriage, because of the Maggie the Frog prophecy. And that was actually foreshadowed as well, when Jaime tells Cersei that their child will never be born if the dead come south. And hey, the dead have already technically come south. Also, the way that this White runs at Cersei, making her protect her baby from it, is also very ominous. And of course, right after Tyrion and Cersei talk about her pregnancy, we are taken to a Jon and Dany bonding scene where they talk about having babies. Not only that, but Jon handing that baby dragon bone over to Dany could also be symbolic of another type of baby dragon that he will give her later. And yes, this meme is great too. It had the right idea.
This place was the beginning of the end for my family.
You see how all of this episode is all about families, but also about their beginnings and ends. The Dragon Pit could easily be the beginning of the end for Cersei and her family, because it was this event, the one that would ultimately make her lose Jaime. This Dragon Pit event being bad for Cersei was foreshadowed in other ways too. First, when the Hound tells Tyrion that it seems like every bad idea has a Lannister behind it. Then when Jon is talking about lies and he says that they won't help us in this fight. And Cersei turned out to be one of the biggest liars in this episode. So Jon is basically telling us that lies won't help Cersei either. Although there was a payoff later on for this too, when we saw Littlefinger dying after having his lies exposed. But yeah, here's a few more instances of setup and payoff. What the Hound said,
"Seems every bad idea has some Lannister cunt behind it."
Combined with what Tyrion says right after.
And some Clegane cunt to help them see it through.
This Clegane definitely helped Cersei see this bad idea through. This line from Jon,
But when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything.
yeah, payoff right here. That's how Jaime feels about Cersei.
Doesn't matter what I'd call it.
One thing I found interesting was that every look between two characters at the beginning of the Dragon Pit event had a payoff as well. Cersei looking at Tyrion, payoff. Euron looking at Theon, payoff. Jaime looking at Brienne. Combined with her F loyalty comment,
Fuck loyalty.
had Jaime leaving Cersei as a payoff. The Hound and the Mountain will have their payoff in Season 8 for sure. But then we have Jon looking at the mountain. Will this have a payoff later on as well? Or was he just shocked at his size? Or even at the fact that he looked dead? Let's just see what happens in Season 8. I thought it was really cool to see Tyrion reminding us that him, Podrick and Bronn are the heroes of Blackwater Bay. Because I feel like this whole season has been setting these three guys up for another heroic event. I keep telling you guys that Podrick's training will come into play later. They're putting a lot of focus on it. Then Bronn has already had his fair share of heroism this season, but they all feel more like small steps towards the big change of heart that Bronn's character arc seems to be heading towards. I think there's still one more big event in store for him. And Tyrion, well, he's been explicitly told by Dany that he's not a hero, which makes me think that he will be one in the endgame. But also, knowing Tyrion as a character, it is definitely something unexpected that we can expect from him. As weird as that sounds, I think you'll agree that he's got hero material in him. We get this line from Jaime.
I suppose we should say goodbye. One idiot to another.
And then we see Cersei using this same idiot word with Jaime for believing her lie.
Alongside them, are you a traitor or an idiot?
If Jaime is an idiot for believing her lie, and Tyrion is also an idiot, will Tyrion be an idiot for believing Cersei's lie as well? Is that what this is hinting at? I'm on the side of people that think that Tyrion knows that Cersei's truth was a lie, and he's just not saying anything. But Tyrion getting tricked could also be the case, if I'm reading this clue correctly. Jorah mentions Dany getting hit with a crossbow, which is more of the same that we've been getting all season if you've been watching this series. Dany getting hit by an arrow, Dany getting hit by a crossbow, Dany getting stabbed in the heart, lots of stuff like that. I do worry about the meaning in the shots that we get while Jorah is saying this though. We see Tyrion having a strange look on his face when Jorah says, "one angry man." And then we see Grey Worm when Jorah is talking about a well-placed bolt making him a hero. I know for a fact that writers and directors think about this stuff. Just look at the Bran speech over the Jon and Dany boat sex scenes. There's a lot of symbolism in those shots as Bran says specific words. I liked hearing Jon telling Theon that he doesn't have to choose, that he can be both a Greyjoy and a Stark, because it immediately made me think of Jon, being both a Targaryen and a Stark. And I think this was a clue that he'll have to listen to his own advice later on in Season 8. I need to combine the last two here for something big. Jon and Tyrion talk about the amount of people living in King's Landing, and immediately after we get the Hound reminding us of the Whites. The connection between these two scenes becomes obvious when Jon uses that King's Landing population number to scare Cersei, telling her that there could be 1 million undead people running around King's Landing. Then we get a lot of what seemed to be red herring foreshadowing before the dragon pit scene. It made us think that Cersei would try and blow up the place like she did with the Sept. First, they say that the dragon pit was the most dangerous place in the world, and maybe it still is. Then Cersei says it's time for us to meet our guests, which subconsciously reminds us of the fate of other guests in Game of Thrones. Robb and his army were guests at the Red Wedding. The people at the Sept were also guests there, so you get the idea. Then we even have the Hound asking Tyrion if he's going to die there, while waiting for Cersei. This is all meant to increase our dread before Cersei arrives. But what if we combine it all for a huge potential foreshadowing? The fact that Jon talks about being surprised at how many people you can fit in King's Landing could be pointing to them ultimately having to fit a lot of people somewhere. It would make sense for this to happen when the dead come, you know, when everyone wants safety behind stone walls. But what if they use that idea and sort of reverse it in order to find a solution to get rid of a bunch, if not all, the Whites at once? If they were to just lure them into King's Landing, trap them all inside after getting any living people out, they could blow them all up with wildfire, if there's any left. They also have dragons, so there's gotta be a way. We already know that King's Landing will be in ruins at the end, thanks to Dany's vision, so this is entirely possible. It would also fit in with the callback style that the writers have been going with as well lately. Only thing that worries me though is that this would be the event in which someone will have to sacrifice themselves, just like Leaf did back in the cave. And leave a like if you like this video, subscribe for more.